After extensive consultation, Sir Bill Gammell and Norman Murray have concluded their independent review into Scottish Rugby. Both the Scottish Rugby Board and the Scottish Rugby Council endorse the review in principle. Now it's over to you, the clubs, to look at the review, discuss it as a club, ask any questions you think are necessary and digest it. Special general meetings to determine the recommendations of the review are scheduled to be held after the Six Nations in the spring of 2020 and will notify the members in the usual way. In the meantime, in order to give members a chance to ask questions of Sir Bill Gammell and Norman Murray, we intend to hold a public meeting at BT Murrayfield on the 15th of January 2020. You are all most welcome to attend. In closing, thank you all for what you do for our sport, and I wish you and your families all the very best for the festive season.
As you'll be aware, there's a governance review was put in place about 18 months ago, and then I was approached by the chairman and asked on behalf of the board and council as to whether I would do a governance review, really because of the rapidly changing world of rugby.
We started with a clean sheet of paper. We looked at the current organisation and thought, well, how can we improve that? How can we develop it? Well, we saw a whole range of people right across the game, and the sort of ground rules were that no minutes were taken, it was non-distributable, so people could really open up. And the number of people in the diverse roles that we saw right across the game gave us a pretty good idea as to the fact that some change was necessary here. What we found was that there was an overwhelming appetite for changes to the way it was run, particularly because of the divergence between the club game and the professional game, and that has been firmly addressed in the report.
I think for us the key thing was to provide clarity and a real sense of what the roles and responsibilities were for different individuals. So the structure we've come up with, we think, is radical, we think it's pioneering, we think it's progressive, but we think above all it's positive for all of Scottish rugby. And the key thing, I think, was the separation of the domestic game from the professional game in terms of how it was run and who was involved in the decision making.
Well, we looked at other sporting bodies, we looked at other rugby unions as well to see how they were run. And what we've come up with, as Bill says, is pretty radical. But we think it'll work. We think with the right people in the right places here, it'll work extremely well. And the timetable to this taking place would be from January up till June next year.
I think the key thing for the clubs is we've basically given the running of the club game to a rugby development board. And that rugby development board will have 3 people from Scottish Rugby, but it'll have 6 nominated members that come through the clubs. And these members will be remunerated for the job that they're doing. And I think it gives a much closer alignment where the domestic game is really run by the people involved in the domestic game, the community game. So it's basically providing clarity, but we think more direct involvement. At the same time as we're creating a professional performance board, there must be a strong bridge and link between what the clubs are doing and what is happening in the professional game.
I think I would just add one thing that came through pretty strongly here was that out there, if you know what I mean, there was a big misunderstanding of how Scottish Rugby was run. And this new structure, I think, clarifies the Rugby Development Board, the Professional Performance Board. That makes things much clearer in terms of how the sport is going to be run for the future.